Good afternoon, everybody. Hello and welcome to the 5 More Medical Devices Strategies That Are Doomed to Fail in 2012 webinar hosted by Total Innovation Group. I'm Gunter Wessels. I'm the Healthcare Practice Principal, and I'm co-hosting this event today live and in person in Boulder, Colorado with Charlie Johnson. Charlie, say hello.
Hi, everybody.
We've got a fun-filled, action-packed, and I think enjoyable webinar for you today as we explore some more observed missteps in the marketplace in relation to medical device sales and marketing. And again, we're going to come at the end of this with some actionable implications for you, whether or not you're a Salesforce manager, if you're a marketing manager, a salesperson, or an interested party as a consultant, and so forth. So let's get right to it. Again, I think it's important, since we're talking about dooming and failure, to be pretty precise about what we think failure looks like. And, historically in the healthcare market, we've been faced with growth, and that's actually structurally changing at this point, where we've got a marketplace that's consolidating and changing. However, compared to your peers, failure looks like sluggish growth. It looks like market share declines when you have a competitive product. If you've got price or margin erosion, commoditization, or diminished profitability throughout this next period, that is, in essence, a failure of our goals as a business. And in essence, some strategies that you put in play to try and resist that, if they're doomed to fail, they then end up, perpetuating this current condition. So it's a kinder, gentler, not a smoking crater in the ground definition of failure, but nonetheless, business objectives not being hit is the focus here. So, Charlie, you remember this. We actually got together immediately following these first 5, where we talked about pricing confidentiality agreements and the fact that those are, unsustainable because of transparency as well as GPO actions. The going after additional salespeople and how that may not be as good as focusing salespeople on better assignment, corporate accounts, geographic market assignment, instead of focusing on specific behavioral elements or market spaces, physician preference, appeal, and then feature advantage, benefit, and sales. Hey, I want you to react to this because we had a number of discussions on each one of these, but the most important one for us to revisit today would be, in your opinion, would be what? What would you like us to focus on and revisit today?
I think we should focus today on 2 things, the appeal to physician reference and the feature advantage benefit sales and marketing. Those are 2 very key things that have been a part of most medical device companies for decades.
Well, so, the appeal to physician preference, just in review again, we see that continuing to fail right now because physicians are increasingly affected by more centralized decision-making and the Sunshine Act. And the feature advantage benefit sales and marketing is actually revisited in a different form in the next 5 that fail. So those being most relevant, I think, relate to whoever on the call also would agree with that. So the 5 new ones. This is... we've been observing a lot of activity out there where people are just focused on getting new features added to product lines, still trying to innovate, and then launch now. We see that failing for a couple of reasons, which we'll dig into in a minute. The next strategy we see is focusing on the largest customer, going big and winning big. There's a couple of hazards related to that. We see the focus on key opinion leaders and then trickling down from there being an increased hazard in the current environment. Betting on past performers in terms of salespeople we see as an increasing hazard, and then a overwhelming focus on field activity with the, at the expense of training. And I got to point this out. We're in that business. We're extremely busy. I'm saying this is a failing activity for the companies because, the organizations that recognize the value are going to outmaneuver those other ones. So let's dig into the first one here. And again, we've got some talk about innovation here planned, but adding features and launching now is a failing strategy because it focuses on new product features and advancements. It's better, cheaper, it's faster, it's newer, etc. And the real problem here is that solutions are much more contingent on customer capabilities today than more of the same thing like the advances in resolution or speed or accuracy and so on. And the real reason for that is because healthcare delivery is evolving at a pretty rapid pace right now post the approval and sustainment of reform. Workflow that surrounds your device and your solution remains a persistent challenge because labor markets are historically challenged. We don't have the talent we used to have. Demographics are shifting. Automation is really critical, and automating processes for IT and so on are complicating the usage condition for your current solution. So, more of the same thing and it's better, et cetera, is just not cutting the mustard right now, which leads us to one of the frontiers here, which is disruptive innovations. And, our observation of the marketplace is that innovations can win. But you know what? Those ones, disruptive innovations, are oftentimes disrupted, and more closely matched solutions are the key. So, Charlie, let's talk about innovation for a second.
Well, I think when you talk to most companies, what their main selling point on their new product delivery is innovation. Now, if you multiply the number of companies calling on hospitals and they're all selling innovation, how innovative is their innovation? And one of the marketing companies that I've recently worked with in Boston made a very bold statement. They said, innovation is dead, integration is king. Now, think about that for a moment. That means people are more willing to accept a technology that they can integrate into their current operations and doesn't disrupt those operations in such a way to affect patient care. So you also look at Moore's law, and you look at the curve. Who does innovation appeal to? Only 15% of the population, the innovators and early adopters. What about the 68% of the majorities, the early and late majority? Innovation is not a word that is meaningful to them. When we're talking about innovation to department heads, we're talking about innovation to service line managers. Those words are frightening. When you talk about innovation to a materials manager, again, that's not a word they really want to hear. So I think we should be careful on how much we talk about our innovation and look more at how we talk about integration.
I like that point a lot, integration being the key focus there. And from a tactical, practical standpoint, as a sales and marketing practitioner out there today, we really want to challenge you to look at demonstrating the value of your solutions and claiming the realization of benefits in that integration worldview. This means you got to integrate your solution into the clinical capabilities that are evolved or enhanced by your solution. You got to look at not just the clinical improvements, so you got to look at the operational efficiency improvements that integration of your solution create. And you need to, in an equal part, those two, as well as the third, which is financial performance, cost reduction and liability avoidance, that the integration of your solution is. It's entirely appropriate for a new product strategy to evolve into a detuned, price competitive solution. And that ends up being one of the ways to do it and to compete coherently today. So that's the first strategy, and again, integration is the key. So my next favorite here, which is go big, win big, right? Focus on the largest customers. Go fishing for whales. And if they're the largest current customers, of course you're not going to ignore them, but, develop those. And then also go after the largest potential customers. And, let's take them all down. Here's a spear, go get me an elephant, right? Well, the problem with this is that in the current environment, the healthcare market is growing and declining at different rates in different market spaces. And if you look specifically at the hospital market, there is a little bit of stability here, and there's some declines, which we show you in the next slide. But there's a lot of instability in the other urban categories, as Medicare defines them. That's the bottom right blue quadrant, which is about 1 in 4 hospitals. The critical access hospitals are fairly stable, but they're trying to form cross-linkages with large urban and other urban or referral sites. The rural facilities themselves are facing different demographic challenges based on wherever they're located. And as a consequence, their priorities shift, and they're either growing or adding services or paring them down and reducing them. The majority of that paring down and reducing is happening in these other urban areas, which are heavily challenged in the post-reform 1.0 era or the post-Obamacare era, depending on what you want to call it. So if you look at the way the American Hospital Association looks at hospitals, you can actually see some dominant trends based on hospital categories. There's some coherent consolidation in the for-profit sector. The state and local run county hospitals are declining, and acceleration in the decline there is pretty remarkable. The federal segment, the VAs and the Indian Health are stable, and then there's some regionalized consolidation in the not-for-profit segment. So it depends on not only what geography you're in, but what the payer mix in that area is, what the state government's doing in the post-reform era in bumping up Medicaid, as to what's happening in the organization in terms of its posture to growth. And some of the largest facilities out there have huge exposure to states that are not going to fund the Medicaid matching funds under reform. States like Florida, states like Texas, which have huge county hospitals that are extremely large, they're going to be severely challenged by this, this kind of bubbly implementation. So it really depends on who you're talking to and where your solutions have the greatest amount of value. It's not just a sheer size sort of thing. And Charlie, you had an issue that I wanted you to talk about with the joint clinic.
That's right. In Connecticut, where I live, it's St. Francis Hospital has developed a joint center in central Connecticut. And basically what they've done in a lot of states, is to take the high profitable surgical areas and try to consolidate them into major centers. Now, what's interesting about that was they've recruited the best doctors from around the state. They're planning on doing 25 to 30,000 joint replacements a year. But I was told by a VP of sales of a major orthopedic company that when he met with them, when they came to the table, they gave him the price that they would pay in order for them to be available to their doctors. So not only was that price a significant discount, but the cuts in margin and the cuts in service and the increase in service, you can imagine that even though we're on the list of products and certain doctors will prefer that, is that a profitable customer for us? And I think that's happening in a lot of places. So we're dropping prices to get the wins at the big hospitals and the big IDNs because they demand it, or we can't play.
And that challenges your profitability fundamentally. And at the end, it's really about making a profit and making the turn as healthcare evolves. This core point really sheds lights on that. The second problem here is your largest and most capable organizations are not only increasingly price sensitive. These are the organizations that are innovating in care delivery forms and changing their form of care delivery. So they're reworking the way they do their business to reduce utilization, to cut costs first and foremost, and to streamline care delivery. So to play there, you're either going to have to take the haircut that Charlie was just describing and survive it, or you're going to have to provide something interesting to them that improves the overall utilization profile of that organization, does something more interesting to streamline care delivery, and does maybe even across multiple care settings. So you're either going to have to give up a tremendous amount of value on price to be a player. And again, you've got to do the math there. But it's harmful and risky. Number two, these folks might end up leading you down a path which at your lower price they're going to be utilizing less, which is going to harm profitability more. Or the other opposite side is you need to step into a space where you're helping them do some fairly strategic things, which makes you a bit more of an innovative play, which we're going to hammer on next. Now, so the remedy here for the go-win, big-win strategy that we see failing is you got to define where your solution has the greatest impact on those three elements of cost: the clinical, operational, and financial. The mid-market here, folks, is straining. Okay, it is struggling to make the turn. That is creating a tremendous amount of opportunity for the savvy companies to come in and cause measurable change. The other aspect of the market is the low end of the market. Smaller facilities are evolving incredibly rapidly as the market consolidates, and that's creating some new opportunities too in care, in more complex capabilities closer to the patient populations and so on. So that's the idea. And we've got a comment here and a question that we can take, and it's from a device company. we have the exact same scenario in Kaiser in California. Calissa, I appreciate the comment. And, yeah, a large managed care organization like Kaiser is going to give you successive haircuts unless you find some way to be more innovative and get out of that price bidding game. That's a very coherent comment. Charlie?
You know, Gunter, not only that, a good friend of mine from a major medical device company is the regional manager of Kaiser. Now, this last year, in order for them to get the contract, not only did they have to realign their sales team to have less salespeople and more clinical support people, but they also wanted their salespeople not to be bonused on selling more, but to be bonused on helping Kaiser achieve their goals. A significant change from what we've seen in the past when these Kaiser-like organizations, which are going to continue to grow, are dictating the method with which they're going to buy products from a vendor.
You know what? My crack webinar team are pointing out that we misspoke that. So if we mislabeled you, we want to shout out to the appropriate person. There's Dave Stewart we want to say hi to, and David Chersky as well. And everybody, thanks for being here. I'm running a webinar, so I can't be precise about who asked the question just yet. Let's go on. Let's talk about KOLs. How this is a bit of a problem. We see a tremendous amount of organizations focused on developing key opinion leaders and, getting those lead users and then letting that innovation trickle down across the marketplace. And it's appealing on its face. I mean, this is the way we used to do it. We're going to get to somebody from some big name who publishes a lot. We're going to engage them, have them play with the whatever it is, device, toy, drug, you name it. And they'll be seen as innovators. They'll go out and speak and then convert their friends and followers, and in the end, we're going to have a commercial success. And yeah, that is certainly part of the way the market still works. But we see this strategy failing for a number of reasons. The main one, and this is probably best articulated by this stock chart. Now, I'm not going to name the name of this stock, but it's a robotic company, and they make a very innovative device, and they found out that this KOL process increases the hazard, the beta on the stock, because they documented, and their stock price has actually shown the effect of the disconnect between lead users and innovators and the rest of the target market where you can actually hit your market returns. You see, if your KOLs don't represent the people who are going to buy your stuff when you need to sell a lot of this stuff, you end up having your stock price fall off a cliff here. And that is increasingly the case. People who are most prone to innovations, as Charlie pointed out, innovation being a problem, that integration is much more important. That integration step avoids this problem with key opinion leaders. And where is it written that the key opinion leader that publishes the most has the most sway within a regional geography?
Well, I actually think the use of national KOLs is really becoming diminishing because most doctors know that the national KOLs that these companies are using have some kind of fiduciary interest in the company, and therefore, in my opinion, their impact on the local hospital or the local physician has diminished. Now, through research on social network and technical network analysis, it shows that in regional markets, one specialty doc has the ability to influence 12 to 20% of their regional peers. They are the true KOLs when you look at selling into a region rather than utilizing national data to try to sell your products to a local doctor.
Okay, very nice. And, finding those KOLs that are hidden amongst our current clients is really not about finding KOLs. It's about finding influencers. And, again, if you do that wrong, it's at your peril. The VP of sales at this organization was unceremoniously, voluntarily retired. How many euphemisms can you pack into one sentence? So the idea here is, the remedy to the trickle-down idea and getting national KOLs is to think differently about your market and recognize the fact that service line management has dominated the areas that most device companies play in. Service line managers are actively engaged in streamlining care to try and provide a backing to whatever the organization, a hospital or a chain of hospitals is emphasizing, like orthopedic surgery. That is a typical service line. Now, if they're in a service line and they've got a service line manager, they've got a center of excellence in this area. Sometimes it's even endowed and named so it's the so-and-so's Orthopedic Institute or the Joint Institute or the Spine Institute, et cetera. The service line manager or the one in charge here is focused on a specific group of people, and this is not just a disease state. This is a specific population. So they have a specific payer background. They have a specific work background. They're getting very sharp on who they're going after because they're marketing to them actively, and they have a range of conditions and symptoms that this service line is aiming at because it works with their financial models. And then the service line manager is engaged in forming a capability or a product line at the provider that emphasizes quality, delivers high-quality care, very satisfying patient care, good outcomes, streamlined processes. It provides access to that care to the targeted population, so it's where they need it to be. They can get in when they need to get in. They get the access to the services, physician, and so on. And it's built around the mechanism of enhancing convenience. I want to make it easy for you to come in, and I want you to have surgery's not fun for anybody, right? But I want to make it convenient and as much fun as possible. And then these service lines themselves grow. They become comprehensive product lines that include screening, prevention, diagnosis, treatment, aftercare, and support. So it's important, if you're selling a device into this space, you got to figure out what kind of diagnoses you're looking for, not just the indication that the device was approved for. And I'm not saying make off-label claims, but what I am saying is understand what that diagnosis is and how you might be able to assist the service line manager in recruiting people for that diagnosis. Also, you need to think about the clinical capabilities that allow them to better diagnose and better treat and improve their ability to create access by giving them operational efficiency. This theme keeps repeating itself, and it's important to know that aftercare support is considered. It's not just did the stent go in well, but what's the prognosis, what's the post-intervention pathway, because the service line manager cares about that. They then talk to this physician that you're used to influencing and dictate medical policy, help shape medical policy, and think about this a lot more coherently. They then, therefore, influence not just the doctors who are susceptible to a new clinical message or capability. They influence the entire business at a specific organization. And, again, if your device is not just in the OR, if it's in the laboratory, if it's in radiology, if it's in the emergency room or anywhere else, the service line manager in charge there will dictate to those departments what they need to do to be able to plug into this more strategic orientation. Okay? No comments from Charlie on this one. Go for betting on past performers. I know you got a lot here. This is kind of a problem, betting on past performers. It has to do a lot with the way your company is structured and the way you're going to market. But, this being a strategy, you can gain quite a bit of efficiency by going after people who are tenured, experienced in your industry. And there's certainly nothing wrong with tenure and experience. I think it's great because I have some, and you should too. The issue here is as a focus for you to go gain market share and grow, picking off your best competitor being a strategy there, we see failing for a couple of pretty important reasons. Again, I'm not mad at you if you've got experience. I just don't think it's the best way to grow your companies to go looking for them. The first reason is a lot of industry-based experience leads to habituation, and they're not always good habits that have been developed over this long run. So, and that good habit, that good or bad habit that the experienced personnel are engaged in is, I know the way it works. I've been in this industry for 20 years. Well, the problem is the industry's changed pretty rapidly in the last 2. And today, more than ever, the biggest competition that you're facing to try and get your placement in is not the good people you're bidding against or would like to recruit and hire, bring in. The biggest competition for a successful project for you is another project. Normally, IT, EMR implementation. The second thing which seems to be consuming a tremendous amount of organizations' resources today is the implementation of a lean project or the formerly popular Toyota production system, and being able to reorient workflow and take cost out. You know what, another one, service line managers are building a lot of parking infrastructure and parking decks to make it more convenient for patients to access their services. So you're coming in and arming your department manager with a project, they're going up against this sort of stuff, and if that's the market you're selling into, getting a more experienced rep who's good at influencing doctors is not necessarily going to cut the mustard. I need to be able to, hire people who are a little bit better at, justifying projects and getting business cases approved. And the second point here, Charlie, is the one that I think you're going to dig into here. The second problem is A players don't regularly leave their companies, right?
Well, absolutely. And in 1964, Dr. Greenberg wrote an article in Harvard Business Review about what makes a great salesman. Now, of course, that's 64, so we'd say salesperson today. And in his point, he said that, and somebody from the competition, are you getting their A players? Are you getting people who are leaving because they're not being successful at their particular company at that time? Most companies look for experience, not sales skills, assuming that someone else has trained them, driving some industries to hire even surgical techs as salespeople because they have the experience, even though they don't have the sales skills, and then don't give them the sales training. You get in the orthopedic and spine industry, you get a tremendous amount of people whose experience allows them to cover cases, but it doesn't help them to sell new products. So when you really think about your hiring model, think about expanding your hiring model from people who have come from your industry. For example, when I first started consulting in the spine business, there were probably 2,000 potential candidates for sales jobs. If you opened up those criteria a little bit to more highly trained salespeople who had some medical device experience and then provided them the understanding of the products and the competition and the experience of covering a case, that's much more easily gained than to gain the selling skills to turn a case coverage into a sales opportunity. Now, the question on the board is, all things being equal, though, don't these people bring contacts and relationships? Absolutely they do. Comes is, who are those relationships with? Do they have relationships with the physicians only, or do they have relationships into the administration of the hospital? If they bring only physician relationships with the continued purchasing of physician services by hospitals and understanding that physician influence is not going to be as great, then are they really bringing you a value?
You see, we really, and this is an observed best practice. We really put a high premium on sales skills and salesmanship, and to be able to be an effective salesperson, that takes a specific profile of individual that has, doesn't have need for approval, but they have need for acceptance. So they don't want to be approved, but they want people to agree. They have need for consensus. They have a lot of ego drive, and they have a tremendous amount of, resources they mobilize against that. What was that?
I was referring to Dr. Greenberg. He talked about what makes a great salesperson, and there were two components in that. One was ego drive, which simply means the desire to make the sale regardless of the reward. And the other one is empathy. Do people have enough empathy, not sympathy, but empathy to understand how their customers are feeling? If they are high in those areas, they are going to be very good salespeople, and they will adapt very quickly to understanding your product, your market, and performing the activities they need to do.
And see, with ego drive and empathy, relationship development, and developing a skill with emotional intelligence to do that, we put a higher premium on that. The experience within the area, can largely be, with some focus and so on. best practices, best practice sharing, and can be taken care of by mentoring culture and that sort of thing. Again, I want everybody to hear me clearly. I'm not against tenured reps and experience here. You get a lot. But on balance, all else being equal, if you've got experience versus sales skill in different levels, let's go to high levels of both. If you're higher in sales than the experience, you've got a better candidate, better athlete. And we've found that there are point after point remarkable successes out there where people have crossed industries because they've been able to be mentally flexible, intellectually curious, and have these other sales-related skills to be able to step in and help their organization succeed as needed. So, did you just drop off the phone, Charlie? Well, that's awkward. Well, I'm going to be completing the webinar by myself then. You want me to hand you the phone? So the remedy here, bet on past performers, is, you got to recognize that the environment has changed. The reason for the difficulty here is that, the environment has changed fundamentally.
Back in.
And oh, you're back in. Good.
Yeah.
The new normal and cost-cutting environment and that sort of thing requires some different skills, and those can be taught. But now's the time to re-examine how you're doing this. You don't just bet on experience because experience isn't as worthwhile as it used to be. It's just because you need to know what's new. It helps to re-examine your value then in that new component, in that new normal, in the context of that new normal. And if you're in this industry and you're not actively feeding your mind on what's changing and what the implications are so that it helps you evolve your skills and understanding, you got a fundamental problem. Things are changing rapidly enough that it requires that. And if you don't want to do that, that's going to be something you're going to have to deal with. From a strategic standpoint, what organization leadership can do is really focus on aligning sales and marketing. Because the environment's changing so fast, marketing needs to be more closely tied into what sales is doing so that you can use sales as a listening post and feed and sense the market and be able to shape and respond more coherently. And sales and marketing, crosstalk and cross-linkages and cooperation, I think, would pay a huge amount of dividends in this area and give you some acceleration as an overall go-to-market orientation. So, Charlie, you're back. Then this goes back to the fifth strategy we see failing. This is drive activity, maximize in-time territory, and skip that training mess. Get rid of it. Defer development and training. We've got to sell stuff now. Numbers are down. And if you're on this call and your numbers aren't down, God bless you. That's fantastic. You're in the minority. Everybody's struggling this year because, there's been a huge cloud of uncertainty. There are headwinds in terms of reimbursement cuts that everybody's dealing with. Providers are strained. Everything's difficult. So if you're growing rapidly, just hang up and keep doing it. For the rest of us, there's a pretty difficult time ahead, and so we've got to maximize our resources. We got these salespeople. We hired well. We trained them. Just get them out there and go sell. What do we want to do with some? Why do we want to slow them down? Let's not slow them down. Let's not distract them. Cut the meeting. Cut the national meeting. Cut it all back. Let's go out and sell. Yeah. Again, the reason we see this failing is without a fundamental understanding of the healthcare changes, their implications, how your solutions can be better positioned as a result, and how to create, executive access and presence, like you do when you do best practice sharing at meetings, like you do in a training room. If you don't have that online and those resources close to the customers, you're going to struggle to remain relevant in this environment. Now, there is a strategy that does work here. It's a very difficult to implement one, though. It involves you taking a very close look at your cost structure, taking down all the costs you can take down, putting on your yellow jacket, jumping into the commodity trading pit, and bidding your business out. That is a strategy that will work if you can make money there. Bidding price, all else being equal, seems to be the case. It's hard to create value in that context, and we really don't need a whole lot of sales and marketing resources to get that done. We really need a pricing policy manager, and we need a trader. And not a traitor, but a trader. And we can get that person out there to go ahead and bid the business. Just fill out RFPs and do all that sort of stuff and, cash the check. If you don't want to do that, you really need to know where you add value, and that process is in flux right now. So without stopping understanding that, you're missing the opportunity to take the benefit of those field resources and maximize them. The second step here, and again, this relates back to something I want you to comment on, Charlie, is not just personal relevance, but if you want better performance in your organization, independent of the pace of industry change, the way to get an organization to perform better is not to throw them out there and make them work harder. It's discipline management, the development of a performance-based corporate culture, and the values that you promote.
And Gunter, all of these are so critical because we often, well, at least in the last few years, we expect salespeople to learn things on their own, solve problems, and go out in the field without a lot of supervision over their activities. And the problem with that is that we all learn differently. We all learn at different paces, and a lot of people are waiting for their companies to give them the training and development they need. So there has to be a combination. We need to make sure that we have a management structure that's focused on the development of the people we hire. Turnover is a killer for a company, so if we hire incorrectly and don't develop people, we're going to have turnover. The cost of turnover, we all know, is extremely high. When you think about the opportunity losses in the marketplace, it runs into the potential millions. So turnover is a killer for a company. So how do we prevent turnover? A management culture that's focused on development of people and their skills and making sure that they function according to the values of the company and, of course, the values of their customer. Because if we don't understand our customers' values and how they expect us to operate, we're not going to be invited in or back.
And, you know, we used to sit there and talk about the fact that we're not talking about pushing a customer and causing them, you know, to kick you out. Sometimes that's a badge of honor. But, you know, today more than ever, especially because of the risks in the marketplace, it's incredibly important for organization fits. Your organization, your customer's organization. A lot of executive teams, at least with strategic partnerships, look for that concept of fit, and that is inherently intangible. It is about culture, and it's about an orientation, the type of people. So the remedy here for driving activity, I think 4 points, right? If you're an independent rep, I love you. I used to do that. That was the most fun I had in my life. It's the hardest job in this industry. We need you to keep banging away. Go, baby, go. Before you run out the door, though, take about 15, 20 minutes a day and study your industry, not just your product and your competitors. Get sharper on what's happening in the environment and be able to think about implications. Draw on resources. Engage in social media and groups. Ask questions. Do some peer sharing. Don't just sell. And I know that's hard. They schedule these cases all over the place. In the middle of the night, early in the morning, it's difficult. But that's where you're going to pay dividends for yourself. You got to develop your healthcare business acumen. And, you know, you can do this academically by sitting there and studying, books on healthcare finance. They've got them on Amazon, $45, and they're really good to fight insomnia. But, you know, you can read about this and develop your own acumen that way. You can go to training courses. But one of the opportunities I see people walk by every day is in engaging their customers. Ask the customer, tell me about your business. What's their biggest challenge? When you're looking at a device like I'm selling you, how do you rationalize that? How does that work? Don't do it because you're trying to sell something. Do it with the customers you already have and figure out how they do this stuff so you can start developing your acumen there. And do it with the innovative customers. Do it with the non-innovative customers and help them set up some stereotypes. If you're running a sales organization or a sales territory with a bunch of different salespeople, look at some productivity metrics. And we've got another webinar on the website that talks about return on sales investment and productivity metrics around sales, to be able to optimize the sales force size, optimize the activity levels, and so on, and really start doing some benchmarking. And the fourth one is don't be shy to ask for help when you need it. Not everything that's not apparent to you is a mystery. There are a lot of ways that we can access information. So draw on social media, draw on your friends, engage in these sorts of things like you're doing today, and then ask for help when you need it. But the blind activity is going to, unfortunately, I think, put you at greater risk. It's going to be a bigger risk now to get it wrong, because as the market continues to consolidate, there's a pretty good premium on having access to customers. Doing it wrong, that's a problem. Charlie?
Okay. One of the things that we always face is the fact that people don't want to be out of the field to go to training. Now, a major medical device company, who I won't name, who has a very great commitment to training and development, actually did an experiment about 15 years ago. And what they did is they took two groups of salespeople in the same company, and one of the groups got continuous training, and the other group didn't get continuous training. And then what they did is they measured the performance group against group. And after the first year, the continuously trained sales force outperformed the non-trained sales force by 30%. But the real impact was in the second year, where the continuously trained sales force outperformed the untrained sales force by 60%. So the days that you invest in training versus staying in the field have a long-term impact in your organization's success.
And that goes for you if you are your own manager as an independent rep. You got to think about yourself as a business unit and getting a positive return for your time. Spending some time on training yourself also pays the same corresponding dividends, maybe even faster, because if you're on your own, your boss knows how smart you are and how fast to push you. So our general recommendations here is, you've heard this throughout the first couple of recommendations. You need a balanced approach to the three dimensions of value of your device and your solution. You need to emphasize clinical utility, balance with operational efficiency, and balance with financial performance. Some dimensionality for you to look at here. And again, we're actually at a hotel with a client. We're talking about this very issue, and we actually had a discussion about this very thing. But when you're talking to the department, clinical utility is about evidence-based medicine, equipment, facilities, and the budget. At the service line level, it's about enforcing protocols, medical policy across departments. It's about workflow on operational side, and it's about profit and loss on the financial performance. At the facility level, it's about adding capabilities. It's about optimizing mix of staff and skills, and it's about optimizing margin and return on assets. At the facility system level, it's coordination. It's about resource deployment, about coordination of assets. It's about capitalization for financial performance. And these same things repeat all the way up at the network level about delivering accountable care to populations based on evidence-based medicine, sharing services for operations, and aggregating market power for payers and suppliers on the financial performance area. This is a template for you to use to consider where your device has the maximum amount of value, and if you want to articulate the dimensions of value, you need to think about how your device might help grow and reduce service lines, optimize staff mix, and improve the margin. And if you can do all three, you've got a compelling reason to do business, and that organization will see you. If not, it's a lot more wobbly. So this is a good old familiar list. The five device strategies last time, which included, the focus on physician preference and the good old feature advantage benefit, led to these recommendations. The same recommendations apply. We just augmented them on the next page. We think you really need to focus on upgrading your skills if you want to play today. Business acumen, healthcare business acumen. You need to understand evidence-based medicine, especially if you're a device salesperson. How does your device improve patient care? What are the outcome profiles, et cetera? Not just the papers that are favorable, but how the disease is treated better in multiple contexts. You need to have some salesmanship skills, and you can't invest in yourself enough, in my opinion. And I invest in myself. You need to look at RFP strategies because you're going to have a lot more, bidding for business happening out there. And again, if you're choosing the price-first strategy, you need to be really good at dealing with RFPs. The next one is get your playbook together. Got to do corporate accounts, got to manage GPO contracts, got to look at different coverage. Look at your talent. Look at yourself, but look at if you've got salespeople who report to you, you need specialists, generalists, managers, and support people, and how do you deploy them? It's going to be a tough year, so look at the way that new delivery models and new care delivery processes can be enhanced by your solution. Focused on improving quality and improving patient flow. Mr. Charlie, you want to talk about the strategic recommendations here?
Sure. I think it's value propositions are really based on three areas. The clinical, does your product improve clinical outcomes? Very important to the people involved in the clinical aspect of the hospital. How do they affect the operational outcome? If you have a product that's complex, hard to learn, difficult for the staff to acclimate to using it, then you're going to have a high operational cost and a very low operational value. And then finally, you have to have your financial value. You have to understand how your particular solution adds the bottom line. As some of you may know, in 1970, Mac Hannon wrote and coined the term consultative selling. And what he said in his book was that you're truly a consultative salesperson when you are affecting your customer's bottom line. And I think we're at a point today in this industry where we need to really be able to do that. We have to re-examine our value in the new normal and define where your solutions have the greatest impact. Examine the small, mid, and larger organizations for gaps and strategic fits. Align your sales and marketing activity. Focus on sales productivity metrics. Ask for help with this, because these are not necessarily things that everybody understands and knows about. There are experts, there are people there in the industry that can help you, and certainly your customers are the best teachers. Anybody that's sold in surgery knows that they learn more from their doctors being teachers than they did from anybody else.
All right, so we're in the questions component of the show today, and again, we've got a couple of questions that have come in here. But so let's just take them as they come here. Biggest challenge is the value proposition of innovative technology to the not-so-innovative hospitals. How do we remedy that, and how do we find out who to talk to at the C-level? I love this question a lot because this is a persistent big challenge. You know, how do you go beyond what the KOLs are telling you and demonstrate the value of innovation at the level of other hospitals, and who do you talk to at the C-suite? Now, let me take the C-suite part, and I want you, Charlie, to answer the innovative question. Again, our recommendation is pretty plain. We want you to look at service line managers and have them help you rationalize how this fits together. At the C-level, you know, this is usually somebody dealing with operations and sometimes in financial, but you can't go ahead and get a CFO or chief operating officer to do anything without the support personnel underneath them putting the pegs underneath this, because a CFO doesn't do any patient care. If they do, they should be fired. They're accountants. They're not physicians. So at the end, you know, that C-level, that's the last step on approval. And putting it as part of your account plan and mapping it out and being able to frame the value in terms that they can understand becomes critical. But they can't be your last, you know, first or last. They need to be your last stop, not your first stop. And then, you know, about innovation, echo the point about integration.
Well, I think when we go back to this concept of innovation, remember the 15% of the people that this appeals to. If you're leading with an innovative conversation, many of your customers are more concerned about how your technology is going to integrate into their hospital, not how innovative it is on how it works. Is it innovative in the way it delivers better patient care? Is it innovative in the way it improves patient satisfaction? Those are the innovations that your customers are looking for. And even hospitals that are not overly innovative are looking for solutions in those areas as well. And the most important thing, and I think that if you look at the people that are most successful, if you're with a customer that doesn't get the message, doesn't agree with the message, doesn't really want the message, it's time to move on. Find somebody else.
I like account triage as an idea. You got to be careful about who you spend your time on. But I always overly convicted them as potential customers. Getting better at that, as I think we all are. Okay, so the next question comes up here. With a new product, before you have clinical evidence showing economic gains, how can you successfully get through the purchasing committees? Yeah, value analysis. Now, I've written on this topic before, value analysis, I think, is overdone in many cases. And it's used, value analysis committees within purchasing are designed to basically politely tell a doctor, no, we were not going to do your set because it failed value analysis. So as a way to get innovations in, it's maybe a little bit of a stretch. They'll still use the same process, but very much more focus on, how do you demonstrate clinical, operational, and financial gains? So the question then comes, with the absence of clinical evidence showing economic gains, how are you supposed to do that? Well, in large part, there are few studies in general that have a connection between clinical benefits and economic gains. These are usually done by policymakers, and they're dealing with very broad issues, whereas a specialized device won't have that. So the key here becomes a rationale that the organization develops, and your clinical advocate, your clinical champion, in concert with the service line manager and a financial analyst, can help make manifest. You can look at the way that the anticipated benefits of the device plus what would happen to the care pathway and the clinicians exercising their judgment, what that would do to the organization. In other words, you can help them write a business case. We don't need this to be published anywhere. We need it to be rationalized locally at the facility, and that process is really what we call writing a business case. So you can do that with or without the value analysis committee, but, don't need to necessarily do it any other way.
Richard, can I add to that real quickly? One of the things that we found with value analysis committees, and speaking with them over the years and with companies that deal with them, there's a lot of new technologies that don't have the clinical evidence in a published literature yet. But value analysis committees also respond very much to the level of passion that your physician champion has for your product. If your physician is not willing to write a letter to the committee, to call people on the committee, or to even show up at the committee to explain why they see value to your product, it's very often what will happen is the committee will reject a technology and see if the doctor comes back to fight for it.
Okay, we've got another comment question here. So Brian says, our value prop surrounding our device is heavily focused on clinical and financial value. Congratulations, Brian. That's excellent. But from a marketing standpoint, we are really focusing on driving customers to our physician buyers. This is absolutely huge for us. It will drive financial value for the physician and then for us as well. Hopefully will lead to greater integration. More companies should be focused on this in attention to marketing, social media especially. We agree with Brian. Our recommendation is making sure that you make the connection to the operational benefits and expand the benefit of that basis, message to it from a marketing perspective as well. Next question was, what are typical titles that you're calling service line managers? Excellent question. The best way I find service line managers is say who runs orthopedics, who runs women's health, who runs whatever. They can be VPs of ancillary. They can be the chief of that service, so VP of, chief of, manager of, director of, but you don't want to hear a department name like laboratory or radiology because those are not service lines. Those are services that support service lines. You want to hear things like women's health, orthopedics, not surgery, elder care, not geriatric medicine. So service lines are, again, broader, and you can hear it just in the name, but it's VPs, directors, head, chief, etc. And those aren't nicknames. Those are just real ones. Any recommendations for innovative devices that can both stand alone and integrate into existing equipment? Well, that's a very interesting question.
And that's a good question,
too.
My
thinking cap on.
I got mine on, if I can comment on that. Again, if you think about innovation, we have to think about the innovative use of that product to improve patient care, patient outcomes, and the financial benefits to the hospital. Integration, there was a very interesting series of studies done on people's willingness to make a change. Basically, this was from a Harvard Business Review article. It said people irrationally overvalue the benefits of the products they currently use, causing them to value the products that you own more than the benefits of new ones. The psychology of gain and loss means losses of existing features have a far greater impact on people versus possibility of gains. And in general, twice the value, customers demand twice the value to give up products they are comfortable with. So in answer to that question, what I would focus on in demonstrating that the integration benefits and the ease of use that is not going to be so currently using, if that's the case, will be a much stronger way to get the service line managers or the department heads to see that it's not going to make a major operational impact in their department on their people.
Okay. Hey, folks, we're watching our next part of the day here happen in front of us. We want to thank our hosts at Labsco, a fine company, for allowing us to do this in the middle of a development program. We also want to give a shout-out to Cepheid, great organization there. And then to every one of you for attending. This recording will be on our website for those of you who registered. Anybody who else wants to see it, just go ahead and fill out the form. We don't spam you, and you can go ahead and access the recording. So, final comments here. If you want to engage us, we've made a pathway available to you. Just give us a code that's right here. It's in the webinar. We'll give you a credit on a course or a consultation. We'll also provide you with a hospital financial profile as you need it. And that's the look of the two of us right now. We're, of course, much more attractive in person, but we are much more responsive over email. So go ahead and send us a note here, Gunter at myTIGI or Charlie. Follow us on Twitter. Go to www.tigi.net. And in the meantime, enjoy the new normal environment. Go make an impact on some hospitals day to day, and thank you for attending our call. Closing comments, Charlie?
Thank you very much. It's been great.